Okay gang, I'm hot off the heels of a 34-minute Secret of Mana video, so you can bet your ass I'm looking to review something breezy, which means we're bringing out the old game wheel again. Alright, hey, hang on a minute. Those are all fishing games. Get that thing out of here. Who's in charge of that anyways? Whatever. I'm just gonna go ahead and choose Ms. Pac-Man for today's video because why not? You guys ready for this? Like and subscribe, let's go! Alright, so, we all know Pac-Man, right? Little yellow pie chart looking guy you guide around a maze collecting dots. Massively successful arcade game developed by Namco and released in 1980. Hell, we all know Ms. Pac-Man as well, which came out in arcades 2 years later. But what many don't know is that Ms. Pac-Man was not made by Namco. It wasn't even made by a Japanese developer, but rather an American one called General Computer Corporation, which, my god, has to be the most boring name for a company. But yeah, Ms. Pac-Man actually started out as a modification kit for the original Pac-Man called Crazy Auto. Modification kits, for those unaware, were unofficial and unlicensed mods to popular game cabinets that did everything from speed things up to change the graphics, sound, and AI. General Computer Corporation already caught shit from Atari for making one for Missile Command, so when they made Crazy Auto, they legally had to present it to Midway, the North American distributor of Pac-Man. Well, in a feel-good turn of events, Midway loved it and pulled a few strings with Namco to turn Crazy Auto into Ms. Pac-Man, a sequel, thus initiating Pac-Man's feminine counterpart into the Pac lore. And fun fact, the titular heroine went through numerous name changes, including Miss Pac-Man, but that was axed due to the fact that according to this cutscene, she has a baby with Pac-Man, and with the Miss title, that would imply the baby was had out of wedlock. Funny how within moments of introducing a female Pac-Man, they're already floozy-proofing her. Didn't stop them from using this graphic, but whatever. Ms. Pac-Man was a huge success, and like most games back then, it was ported to a bajillion consoles, including the one nearest and dearest to my heart, the Super Nintendo. And oddly enough, this port was released in 1996, which is really late in the console's life cycle. Yeah, we got all this malarkey here before getting a game that actually resembled Pac-Man proper on the SNES. But we're here to actually review this game, right? So let's do that. Let's get this out of the way. Pac-Man is a very well-designed game. Genius in its simplicity, the whole idea of moving through a maze, collecting all the dots and avoiding the 4 ghosts works remarkably well. Grab a power pellet and turning the tables on the enemy provides momentary catharsis. And when you clear the level, you're taken to another level with faster ghosts and power pellets with a shorter lasting effect. Gobble fruit for more points and all that, yeah. As it was originally a modification kit, Ms. Pac-Man certainly didn't reinvent the wheel, but there are a few changes for the better. Most notably, there's more than one maze this time around. Yeah, I don't think a lot of us remember that the original Pac-Man had only one maze. The arcade Ms. Pac-Man has 4. We also get some changes to enemy behavior and how the bonus fruit makes its way through the maze. Not to mention these cutscenes that show us where Pac-babies come from. Good stuff, but I wanted to get into the SNES version specifically because they included all this and added even more. This port was done by the folks at Digital Eclipse Software. Moving past the silent and off-putting title screen, we can see exactly what was added by looking through this menu. Let's start up here where you can choose the game mode, and look at that! Not only can you play 2-player alternating, but 2-player simultaneous, and you play as Mr. and Ms. Pac-Man. And yes, having 2 players on screen at the same time adds exactly the amount of chaos you would expect it to. But having 2-player simultaneous play highlights with crystal clarity one of my main design gripes about the SNES port. As you can see, the entire maze is never fully on screen at once. You actually pan up and down, which isn't too bad even though the HUD can pan out of frame too, which is kinda ridiculous. See, I just died and have no idea how many lives I have left because I just happened to be at the top of the map instead of the bottom. But yeah, in 2-player simultaneous play, the panning really messes things up if someone chooses to venture off screen. Where the hell are both the players right now? The SNES version also includes an option to change the difficulty from easy to normal, hard, or crazy, which is decent, I suppose, and hey, look at this! You can also change the level set to something entirely different. For example, if you hate the aforementioned panning, you can opt for the mini set, whose mazes are custom built to fit on one screen. Big, on the other hand, is exactly what you think it is, and the mazes almost function as extensions of the arcade maps. So, if your regular map is a tiki mask, your big map is a tiki mask with abs. And then, oh lordy, we have the strange maps. And strange really is the appropriate word, because look at this. Since when did Pac-Man have open spaces? Not only that, the fruit has been replaced with a Whopper combo, a milk carton, a severed hand. Does Miss Pac-Man owe a debt to the Mafia? But the strange maps are quite unique, and there are tons of them, meaning this somewhat gimmicky addition adds a whole lot to the base game. And then we have the Pack Booster, and I'm gonna jump the gun and tell you that this feature absolutely saves the game. Anyone who plays video games today has likely had their brain melted by their breakneck speeds, so going back to this is an incredibly tough sell. Well, here comes the Pack Booster to save the day. What does it do? It basically gives Ms. Pac-Man an epinephrine shot in the ass so she can rocket around the maze at double speed. Let's go! And here's the kicker. It does not run out. You can even turn it on permanently, effectively turbocharging the game and making it way more fun. Looking at the design as a whole, Ms. Pac-Man may be a classic, but it isn't timeless. Thankfully, the handful of SNES special features really save it from becoming an artifact. Quick question. When's the last time you really sat down and played a game of Ms. Pac-Man? For me, it has been a while, so playing this thing took a bit of getting used to. When I started, I just plain sucked, constantly missing crucial turns and getting easily flanked by the ghosts. I soon developed a few strategies, which I can go into in depth, but I won't, because really the best strategy I found was just having a couple of beers. No, I'm not joking. For some reason, playing this game sober, I just kept overthinking things and getting clobbered by the ghosts. After a few beers, I found myself getting into the zone way more by taking more risks, being more nonchalant, and ultimately choking far less. Stick one too many beers in me, though, and I'm past the peak and rolling down the other side of the mountain, screwing up like there's no tomorrow. Balance! But gameplay is good. There aren't any control issues, no slowdown really. The ghosts are always going to be chasing you in unique ways thanks to the new behaviors I mentioned earlier, so there's no way you can beat any level by following the same pattern. Let's just move on to the graphics, because this should be fun. Now, before we look at this as a foregone conclusion, let me ask you something. How badly do you really want them to mess with the graphics of the original Ms. Pac-Man? Remember Pac-Mania? I think they made the right call with these graphics by keeping them faithful to the original, but adding just enough 16-bit sheen. Ms. Pac-Man herself looks great, and look, they made sure to reserve a pixel for her beauty mark. The color palettes are okay, and there are enough of them to make you think you're getting more levels than you're really getting. The only real blemish is the title screen I mentioned earlier. This art style, it looks like it was taken off a kid's menu at a small-town diner. But if you want to criticize the graphics of Ms. Pac-Man, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You might as well criticize the special effects in Hamlet.
To be.
So let's just get to the audio. Yeah, might have to be a little less forgiving here because they did absolutely nothing, at least as far as the music is concerned. Notice how unusually musicless this video has been? Well, that's because the only music in the whole game is this. And this. And a few more for the other interludes, but you get the gist of it. In total, you're looking at less than a minute of music. They could have at least made up a new song for the title screen. I had to check to make sure the volume was up when I turned the system on because there's nothing but dead silence here. A little disappointing to say the least. Sound effects need to be discussed because it's quite a noisy game despite having no music. You've got sounds for the ghosts milling around, Ms. Pac-Man eating power pellets, the ghosts being vulnerable after a power pellet is consumed. Everything seems to make a noise. When it comes to the aesthetics of the sound effects, it's a bit rudimentary, and this is where we can discuss the value of sticking with the classic material for better or for worse. But there's another angle to look at this from, and that is the function of the sound effects. See, the sound the ghosts make changes depending on the number of pellets there are left in the stage. This actually gives you an auditory sense of your progress in the level. Similarly, after eating a power pellet, you'll know how much time you have to chase the ghosts down by listening to this rising sound here. Kinda sounds like we're waiting for the DJ to make a sick drop or something. But if you want to look at the sounds coming out of the game as a whole, I gotta say it does err on the ugly side, and no amount of classic gameplay can override that. As far as whether you should pick this up, I'll start by acknowledging that yes, you can play this game almost anywhere. Shit, I'd be willing to bet you could open up a new tab and track down a way to play Ms. Pac-Man on your browser in minutes, if not seconds. But that does not mean that all versions are created equal. You want me to show you the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man? Nope. Too bad, here it is. Well, maybe not this severe. There are some versions of Ms. Pac-Man that are in fact worse. Listen to the Apple II version. Yikes! When is the demon showing up? But here's a fun caveat. The arcade version of this game is worse. No difficulty setting, no co-op, no pack booster, only 4 levels, and most ports of this game are based off the arcade version, which gives the SNES version of Ms. Pac-Man a serious leg up. Even modern ports of the game on those rescaled arcade cabinets aren't as good. You want to spend $1,000 on this monster that doesn't even have the pack booster? Some of the other versions of Ms. Pac-Man include the features seen in the SNES version, with the Genesis version in particular being almost an exact copy. But to sweeten the pot a little more, just know that a copy of Ms. Pac-Man for the Super Nintendo is only going to cost you $10. Frig, that's a deal. So really, this game has a lot going for it in the value department thanks to some unique features and a low price point. Which means it's time to drop the review, and like I said, if it were just a simple arcade port, Ms. Pac-Man for the Super Nintendo wouldn't score that high. But thanks to the addition of some amazing features, this game gets a marvelous 7.3 out of 10. The fun to cost ratio here is ridiculous, so I say go ahead and treat yourself to arguably the best iteration of Pac-Man that exists. Have fun.